And we're happy to take questions. I think we do have a few people that wanted to share that have come out formally to support us, so maybe I'll pass it off to Kevin for that piece.
But it's a reality that we face with trying to keep our kids safe in the schools, you know, with the unfortunate things we see going on around the country. And it was so apparent when I came in here, it was really an eye-opener. I was like, wow. And like the past construction practice at Cooper, you know, it was built in around 1960 with the ductwork being below grade, below the slab, the plumbing and things like that aren't accessible in raceways, so they have to bust the walls out when they have issues. It just adds huge maintenance and operating cost. So there's those things there are things to keep in mind, and right at the end there they were talking about if we push it out, kick the can down the road to speak, you're not going to get the value you're going to get by taking action now and addressing the problems and making all the school spaces better for the kids, because in the end it is about the kids in the community. You know, a strong school system builds a community. It's draw economic development. It's just it's adds value, I believe, to the whole community, and it was real clear in that one slide where it's almost $5 million a year projected for the same amount of what you want to do. So you're going to get a lot bigger bang for the buck, and it's. We all have to pitch in our community to keep our community growing and being a good space to live for our kids to grow up in. Personally, I don't live in Superior. I live in Duluth. When they talk about the $92.5 million and the amount of square footage and the things that they're going to do with that, Duluth had a huge referendum a few years ago, about 5-6 years ago, I think, and it was quite a bit bigger, 3 times the size. And I got my tax statement, you know, the other day, just like everybody else does, and there was a slot down there for what's going towards the school funding there, and it's significantly higher than what you're going to be looking at for the value of home. So it seems like it's a very transparent process. They're being very open. You know, I'm sure if somebody asked, you could get brought on a tour and showed some of the issues with the water damage and, you know, the spalling and the falling off brick and all of those things. So the Northern Wisconsin Building Trades is supporting it. We think it'll be a great thing for the community and help enhance the city of Superior and make it a place where people want to move to. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Norm.
Anecdotally, Duluth has about twice the number of students, about twice the amount of square footage, and 8 years ago, their dollar value was 3 times this. So that gives you a little bit better indication of what this district has been able to do over the years as far as managing their dollars and managing their facilities. The next person that was going to speak was Dave Miner with the Chamber.
Thank you. As Kevin said, my name is Dave Miner. I'm the president and CEO for the Chamber of Superior and Douglas County. When this project started, and I want to say we've had a relationship with the school district for the 25 years or more that I've been with the Chamber, we sat down with Jana and I simply said, you know, she said, is this something that the Chamber would support again? Because when the school district came to us many years ago for the middle school in Northern Lights, we jumped on board immediately, and I see a few people in the audience that we worked with to be able to get that referendum passed. And we look at this really from 2 standpoints, 2 critical items that we looked at. One, have they done their due diligence, listened to the presentation, listened to Kevin go through it, and they came through to my board and walked through that process. But as important, or maybe even a little bit more important for us, we looked at this, what does it mean for our community? I've been the CEO now for the last 22 and a half years. And in that time frame, I have sat in excess of 100 meetings with business owners, developers looking to come to our community. And one of the questions that will always be in their list is, how is your K-12 system? What is your technical college like? What is your four-year school like? And so I always, coming from the hotel industry for many years, I always look at this as a hotel for our community. And what assets do we have? Do you have a swimming pool? Do you have a tennis court? Do you have whatever when you go to a hotel? People coming to our community look at our K-12 system and want to know how strong is it? And is it viable for them to build a business here when they're going to hire people and they want the best things? And, you know, again, as it was brought up earlier, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, I guess it was now, I tend to lose time a little bit. But, you know, as a community, we stepped forward and we built a beautiful, beautiful sports complex that sits on our grounds right now. But when we remember why kids are in school first, it's for academic reasons. And I always say that, but I always preclude it with, I was the jock in this building. I was the sports person. But over my time frame, when I've gotten involved in this building, it's been more for the academic programs. It's been for those reasons why kids truly are in school. And so Jana and Kevin came to the Chamber Board. They went through this process, and we really went through it step by step, because not only are you being asked to increase your taxes on your home, these business leaders are being asked for the same thing and on much bigger buildings. And so as we went through that process, they asked a lot of questions. We've passed and fully endorsed this project as we have, because again, for our community, we see this as an asset. This is something that helps sell our community to people moving here, to businesses looking at our community. As Norm says, it helps out economic development. It gives us one more reason to be proud of who we are, that we've invested back into our youth, invested into the kids, into the facilities that are going to give them the best opportunity as they go out into this world. And that's really what it's all about. It's about giving our students those same abilities, those same opportunities as every other kid in any other school, not just in the state of Wisconsin, but across the world. Because when we look at how our students are going to compete when they leave this building, it's no longer just maybe Duluth or Madison or whatever, but it's kids across the world. That's who they're competing for. And that's what it's all about. So that's why we endorse this project. We did a survey of our membership. We got over a 75% response back that endorse this, that they see the benefit to this. And again, I really give credit to both Jana and Kevin for taking this out, doing all these meetings, and getting it out to the public, because that's what's important, is getting people to understand that. So again, we have supported this project. We think it's critical for our community. It's again, adds that next layer that helps us go out and do economic development. It helps us sell this community to outsiders, because for an outside business to want to come, one of the first things they look at is, what are you doing for yourself in your own community? Are you taking care of yourself? And when we can show them that, yes, we are, that notches us up that peg about wanting to have companies move here. So again, I'm very proud of our relationship we've had over the years. It's a two-way street. We both benefit from this. But I can only say that as far as the Chamber is concerned, this is something I truly hope that this community will step up and pass this referendum and give our current students and students to come over the next 60 years that ability to have the same opportunities that everybody else has.
Thank you so much, Dave. Now is the time where we want to be able to answer questions you have. If there's something we aren't able to answer, which I hope doesn't happen, but of course we'll get your name and make sure that we get that answer to you. So we'll open it up for questions. Yes. I'll answer a couple things, and then I'll ask Kevin or Gary to talk about the actual construction piece. But we're being conservative, which means the number's probably going to be less. What I'm saying is, our district has been very responsible since we separated from the city and had to take care of ourselves. Through facility assessment planning, looking at our fiscal responsibility, taking good care of our buildings, and not letting them deteriorate into a point where OSHA comes down to shut us down. So we've tried to be very responsible in that manner. I'll ask Kevin and Gary to talk about the construction piece, but just before doing that, I do think this is about, what do you believe about your community? I believe that Superior could be a destination community. It's a beautiful area. I believe our kids deserve this. I believe our community deserves this. But I think everyone has to make that determination. We have a lot of people that have a lot of passion that are trying to really regenerate this community. And I'm hopeful that they're going to be successful and that people will rally around them.
The population of both Duluth and Superior did drop to an all-time low a few years back, but it has been increasing recently. Property values are going up. Businesses are still moving in. Businesses are still growing. So the fact that this is dying is an untrue statement. Beyond that, when we talk about the tax impact and that it's going to change, if the referendum passes on April 5th, the district cannot go above 92.5 million. That is the maximum that they can borrow or levy. The only thing that changes if that passes is if your property values go up, your mill rate's going to go down. If more businesses come in and the property value increases as a district or as a whole, your mill rate goes down. So when we talk about conservative, there is no way the 92.5 can go up. The projects have to meet that, and if they don't, we have to reassess the projects and get them within a scope that does meet the 92.5 million. That is state law for school education and funding. It cannot go above the 92.5. So that's the first point on the tax side. The next... No, we're not. I said if it passes April 5th, if it passes April 5th, 92.5 million is the max that can be levied. So the next question about what is the best way to maintain these buildings. These buildings have been maintained. These systems are well beyond their life expectancy. The district has done everything within their power. The district is a $43 million a year corporation that has 880 staff members and serves over 6,000 clients when you talk about students and community members that use these facilities. They do an incredible job. They are not like some other organization in this business that can go down to the local bank and ask for a capital loan and leverage their $300 million or more of assets. They have to go to the taxpayers to get permission to improve their facilities. That is one of the major things that we need to think about when we talk about schools and school finances. So when the school districts finally do come forward and they make a change, it's generally a very large change. And what they're trying to do is put themselves in a position for the next 20, 30, 40 years, if possible, with that referendum. In the case of the buildings that we're talking about buildings that not only failed on the physical assessment, not only failed on the energy assessment, but they failed the educational adequacy assessment, and maybe most importantly in today's day and world, they failed on the safety and security asset and expectations. So to make all of those corrections to these existing facilities would cost far more than the plan that's out there right now. The plan that's out there solves all of those problems and puts the district in a financial situation where they can continue to maintain the other facilities while maintaining the new facilities. And the district has charged us with saying we need facilities that are going to last the test of time. Current building technologies, current approaches to design, we are going to be designing these facilities to meet a 75-year exterior life or external wall and roof assembly type approach. That doesn't mean that repairs won't be required. It doesn't mean that windows won't have to be replaced. It doesn't mean that roofs won't have to be replaced. But what it does mean is that those facilities are going to stand. The internal portions of the building will be designed flexible. So if they need to move walls, they can move walls in an efficient manner. And the ceilings will be accessible, so as systems fail over the future years of that life of that building, you pull the ceiling tiles out, you make the modifications, you run more wire, you run more data, you do whatever you need to do within those facilities. They are much more flexible than they ever have been in the past. And that's just a fact of learning that education methods will change as the life of the building goes on. So those are some of the aspects that they've pushed onto design firms, and that is what design firms have been doing for districts across the country lately. Yes, Dale. You want me to answer that? All right, So the way the construction phasing on the project works, there's a large amount of the $92.5 million that isn't needed the day after the bond passes. So when Elena talks about the phased-in borrowing, portions of the amount will be accepted. Now the last bonds sold don't mature until 2021. So in 2021, the rest of that debt falls off, and by that time, the full phased-in cost will have been created, and the bonds will go out. So the tax impact stays level from next year to 20 years out. There's a portion of overlap, but the borrowing is phased in to reduce the impact of that. Other questions?
I was seeing, I went on the internet last night, so I don't know if you can, but I found a website that's called School Planning and Math. And they showed a median cost in the U.S. in 2014 to build 100,000 square feet, and it's $27 million. So I think that's $270 a square foot. So this website talked about the median building cost for elementary school is $211 a square foot. So my concern and question is this just a check carte blanche and we give them the best, or do we give them good enough? My concern is the average elementary school built in 2014 cost $15 million. So we're proposing $27 million. So is it just a blank check and we can do whatever we want with it? What are the guidelines to say we don't need that? That's too much. That's excessive. Or can we just do what we want with it? So my concern is cost containment. I had to build a house. I wanted to have the best things, but I couldn't afford it. So is there ways that are there people, are there entities that say, no, that's too much, that's excessive? Because I don't know if that information is absolutely correct, but that's some of the information I got. So it seems excessive. Are there balances that would contain some of the costs?
So because obviously I didn't go research what the average was. I would just question, our Cooper is going to be a large elementary school. Typically elementaries are about 300 kids. This will be 600. I don't know if they compare the exact.
It was an average school of 642, and the average square foot was 84,000, and that's about $188 per square foot. So I'm sorry, 188 square feet per student.
So there's a couple things that factor into that. First and foremost, in the square footage, or the square feet per student, it doesn't take into account whether you're in Phoenix or LA or Duluth or Superior. There are a number of buildings built outside of this area that literally have classrooms and no hallways, and the corridors and the lockers are outside. Sounds really odd to us, works really well for them, because now they're not heating and cooling all that additional square footage of hallways. Obviously, we can't combine with that around here. So that's one of the things that drives square footage down. The other thing that changes square footage is when you talk about the types of population, because this is has a higher population of younger students in K3 and K4. Those classrooms generally are bigger per student than center classrooms, and then also because the autistic program that's focused and centered here, that also has a higher square footage. So those are some of the things that drive the square footage up on a specialty facility like this. When you talk about the cost per square foot, you mentioned 2014. 2015, you look at the construction estimates and cost analysis, there's anywhere between 5 and 7% inflation factor in 2015. So the construction time frame that this building can be built is actually 2017, because if the bond referendum passes on April 5th, we go through a design phase. We bid it out in January, which should be the most opportune time to get the best pricing for construction then to happen at the start of the summer or in the spring of 2017. So you have to add 3 years of inflation to that. So if we just use that 5%, keep it simple, that's $10 to go from 14 to 15, another $10 plus to go from 15 to 16, another $10 plus to go from 16 to 17. And that's just, rounding numbers up, obviously, the compounds and that type of thing. So now you're talking about something upwards of $230, about $240, $245 a square foot. The $270 a square foot that you see up there includes site costs, which generally are not included in that cost per square foot. It also includes fixture and furniture and equipment. The furniture and equipment that's in that building is from 1969, and everywhere in between it got moved from other buildings because they had to patch really good. The equipment, you're talking about computers, you're talking about technology, those types of things, that's included in that $27 million. And then you're talking about building permits, design fees, other management fees from both within the district and outside the district to make sure that the project happens on time, on schedule, on budget. And so that's what makes up that $27 million. If you look at the true breakdown of it, we have $190 a square foot, I think.
The existing demolition of the existing.
Oh, and the demolition of the existing facility too. So there's a lot of numbers that compound that. But if you look at the actual dollar value, I think we use right around $190 for the last square foot of the building itself when we created the estimates and the budgets to make up that full amount.
Great, and great presentation. I thought the information and infrastructure needs are well presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, Chris Kentuck, Vice President of the Board, you asked who is in charge of that. It's your board. It's your elected officials. Part of our job is to look at these. We've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours looking at that and asked, is there anybody that's just carte blanche making these decisions? It's your elected officials. It's part of our job is to look at that. And it started out as a much bigger project, and the board meeting after hours and hours and hours and hours knocked that down to our needs and wants. So it's not carte blanche that we're going to, roll out the red carpet. We're going to give you the best we possibly can for the money we have. So you asked whose job that is, and we as board members, board member Rob Morehouse is here with me, feel that's what our elected official job is to look at these needs in our district.
Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, a bit of a follow-up to the scope and budget estimates. Now, I'm curious on how close those, or how tight those cost estimates are in relation to the scope, and how confident you are that you will be able to complete the scope that you proposed within that budget. And if it's not, I understand from the Vice President there of the board that they'll have some discretion to make changes, but once you kick this off, I'm assuming you're going to go through some final designs and then get some cost estimates, and if they're 150,000 or 150 million instead of 92, what's going to get cut?
That's a great question.
The way the budget is set up, we do actually have inflation factors in there based on when construction is going to happen. So we do have that accounted for. There's another element in there that's called construction contingency. Anytime you're dealing with existing conditions, whether it's upgrade of the parking lots out in the country or whatever we might find as far as deteriorated roof deck at Bryant and Great Lakes as we tear that roof off, we do have dollars set aside to deal with the unforeseen conditions that we can't see or that we can't know at this point. That would include the remodeling portion of this building as well. So there are dollars set aside to deal with what I would call standard construction procedures or occurrences that are going to happen. Beyond that, more about identifying the scope and trying to make sure that it stays within the budget the whole way through. Every project goes through multiple phases. In the business we call it SDE, CDE, CA, that type of thing. What that means is during schematic design, well, there'll be a full-fledged planning portion, which we've done some of that programming already, so we know what the space needs are, but we're going to refine that further before we go into what we call schematic design. Schematic design is basically defining the scope, talking about the materials, talking about the amount of area that's required to meet this. At that point, Cross-Anderson will be doing cost estimates to understand what that impact is and how that fits within the budget. Once we resolve the budget and the design issues, we review it with the board, with the administrative staff, the staff themselves. We involve the students in that process as well. Once we've gotten to that point, then we can move a little bit faster. From schematic design to the end of design development, we talk a lot more about finishes and detail, how much casework is in each classroom, all that type of stuff. Again, we've been budgeting for that all the way along. that brings us to that next level of the cost estimate and being able to understand what is the cost really going to be. Then finally, we do one last cost estimate before we put it out on the streets to bid. And that's just to do that last check. Because the last thing you want is a delay because the project came in over budget when it was bid, because now you're going to miss your construction window, or it's going to delay times, or you're going to lose contract to bid up the first time, or you may not want to bid up the second time. So it's in everybody's best interest that we have these milestones, these checkpoints, to check in to make sure that the scope is tracking with what people's expectations were, that the budget's tracking with what is defined and scheduled, and those elements are all in line to get to bid day.
I'm just going to add one other piece. One of the pieces that our school board looked at is what's the track record of the people that we select to go with. And obviously we had 5 people to bid on this project to be working with us. Carl Sanders and LHB had the best working relationship. They could demonstrate on many occasions how they came in under budget as well as on time. And they have the team experience working together. So that was one of the factors our school board looked at. We want to make sure who's ever helping us with us has done it and done it well before, so they know what they're doing. So that was one of the factors in the end. Other questions?
You talked about the cost that this referendum would impact people with a $100,000 house, or $150,000 house, or whatever. And that was if the referendum passed, the impact that would result. What is the cumulative, if you add that to what people are paying now for a $100,000 house, do you have that figure, what that would be? And how does that compare with, say, Duluth, who had the red plan? Obviously, everyone's aware of that. And what their cost is per, say, a $100,000 house or $150,000 house. Or Hermantown, which recently passed the referendum, I believe, for a new high school. What is their cost? Or Maple, which did a major remodeling and expansion of their high school and built an elementary school maybe 15 years ago. How does our cost, school cost for a $100,000 or $150,000 house compared to those local communities that are sizable, just out of curiosity? Do you have any information on what that would be?
I can talk a little bit about this, and maybe Elaine can speak more with clarity on this, but using the example of Maple and what those buildings had an impact. So again, their impact on their tax impact is $13.45. Ours would be $10.68. So that's a quick comparison. But when you're talking about what is the overall piece on your tax statement, I don't know if you can speak to it better than I just know that when we work with our financial planners, the statement was, if somebody has a $100,000 home, they're going to pay an additional amount. So whatever you're currently paying in taxes, obviously is going to go up that 61 cents if you have a $100,000 home. I don't know specifically what's the total dollar amount each individual taxpayer pays, but I do know it is on your tax statement for your house, so you can see what am I currently paying for the school district and what this would add to on top of that.
It really is based on your tax value of your home, and the previous slide. This previous slide showed, currently our total tax mill rate is $10.07, but of that $10.07, $2.51 is going towards the bond referendum debt payments. So it really does, your property tax value does play a role in how much you would pay individually.
Well, I understand that.
Okay.
But, couldn't you hypothetically just take the benchmarks of a $100,000 home, $150,000 home, $200,000 home, and say how much taxes go toward the educational district?
That's what this slide here
That's
does
what that is.
for Wisconsin. No, it doesn't have Hermantown or Duluth or Moose Lake or Cloquet, and I'm not even hazard to guess on those. I know their tax impacts were higher, but I don't know where they started off. This is a very, very low tax impact compared to other districts, and I've been doing it for 15, 20 years. So, but where they started off before they got their increases, I don't know. I'm sorry, I couldn't help you all the way with that, but, you know, this one does show me on the far right, it shows Ashland where it is and where they would be if they passed in Hampshire as well, and where you are in the state average as a whole.
Question on $92.5 million. And conservatively, we're talking 20 years on 4%. Correct? So what does that end up being total payment? Anybody know? I'll tell you what it is. It's $134 million. So really, that's what you're asking the taxpayers. If I go buy a car, they tell me how much my car is going to be by the time I'm done paying. I buy a house, they tell me how much it is. I've been trying to find out how much this whole thing is. He mailed out a postcard, never said the word $92.5 million. It's like, how does somebody try to get informed? I have to run down, print out my own numbers. I find out that the property value in Douglas County, does anybody know what that is? Well, what's your mill rate that you're going off of? All the houses, all you met, hospital, Target, all, add it all up. Anybody know what it costs?
It's like $2 billion, $82 million.
It's $2 billion.
Yep.
Okay. Nobody even seemed to know that at the time. I've talked to board members don't even want me calling them. How'd you get my phone number? I mean, how do I as a taxpayer think I'm getting a fair shake when I can't get answers? And just one last sentence on that. $134 million would be truth in lending law if you first wanted to say, what does this cost? $134.5 million over 20 years. Every month, us taxpayers will be paying $560,000 to pay this. $560,000. I am all for education. I would love to see money go to the teachers. I want to see these kids succeed. My kids went through Cooper School for 40 years. That building's been there. Open concept. People roaming around. All these distractions. I can name off doctors that have come out of that school, architects, policemen, teachers, stockbrokers. They have all been successful because of education. Not whether there's a hallway or there's water dripping out of a wall. $27 million to move it to the other end of the block. And then we're going to pay $560,000. And I want to live in this community. I want my kids to live in this community. I want to afford to live in this community.
Just a couple of things, and others have a comment. The dollar amount that we're going to get authorized for the bond is the 92.5. The tax impact of that 61 cents per $1,000 home valuation is not going to change. So while I understand what you're saying with interest, what would all be, the tax impact on individual people, homeowners, is not what's going to change. That's what we're planning with our financial advisors to make sure that happens. So it's not simply for the first 5 years it's $61 a year, and then all of a sudden it's $250 a year. So again, we map that out to keep it as flat as possible. Other thoughts?
One of the comments that Jan made earlier was the relationship of now is the time to do it. When you look at inflation costs relative to borrowing costs, again, the current borrowing costs for a district are right around 3.25, roughly.
Right, correct.
What's being used to calculate this is that 4 to 5%. 4 to 6%. So then when you factor in that 3.25% of what the current lending cost is versus last year's inflation rate of between 5 and 7%, every year this gets put off, it costs more than starting the process now. And nobody's refuting the fact that anytime you borrow money at an interest rate, you pay more than the actual amount that you borrowed. But right now it's cheaper to borrow money than to wait. And it's been that way for a few years. Well, it changed from 2008 to 2012. Construction costs were going down because everybody needed working jobs, but that's changed back again. So low interest rates combined with higher inflation rates puts the district in a position that they should move now versus continue to try and patchwork and spend money on facilities and systems that are failing and are going to continue to fail and cost the district more and more money. The district has a maximum that they can spend each year. If they have to start spending more on facilities, that money has to come from somewhere. wages are 71%. And I'm not saying what the district's going to do or what they have to do, but they either have to go and pass a referendum, they have to quit taking care of their facilities to the level that they need to, but they have to change staff. Every district faces that every single year when they go through the budget process. Every district faces long-term maintenance and construction issues because their funds don't allow for a regulated repayment and replacement of systems. The only way to do it is to go to taxpayers, explain their position, and hope that taxpayers understand the need and the issues that are out there so that they go responsibly to help the district out.
I just want to speak to it as well, trying to get this information out just for people that may not know this in the audience. We kicked this off initially with a mailing to every homeowner in the entire community with all of our information, with the $92.5 million, with the vision, the need, the solution, everything went out. That was our kickoff to this entire project. Again, we tried to be transparent every step of the way. We also developed a website that got up and running right away before we even started making presentations. I believe this is our 15th, I think, public meeting. We've also done probably another 20 meetings with other groups to try to get the word out. Working with the Telegram, I do a column in the Telegram to explain what's happening. So I think the school board has directed me to be as transparent as possible to make sure we get the information out. We've tried to do that, and that's why we're hosting this meeting tonight and have really advertised everywhere we can think of about this meeting. Facebook, websites, did a TV prompt today, we've been on the radio, so I think we're doing everything we possibly can, but again, that's why we're here tonight to try again to say, if there's questions you have, we want to make sure we answer them. I'm sorry, what?
Thanks for giving me the chance to break a little bit. LHB is known as one of the most sustainable firms in the Midwest. They help design the state guidelines for the state of Minnesota. So when you talk about going green, energy efficiency, using less materials, using materials that are locally found and produced, and using materials that are rapidly renewable, those are all things that fall into the process and mindset of the design firm that was selected. So when you talk about going green, it's about operational costs. Gary has talked a lot about having materials that are low maintenance, so he doesn't have to use chemicals to clean things, so that he doesn't have to repaint every summer, those types of approaches. So Gary is pushing hard. The district has done a number of things already in the cleaning approach and that type of thing. So there's an awful lot of things that this district is doing that we don't talk about, that is pretty incredible to look at what they've done and where they want to be.
I just want to throw in a little bit there. I think we consciously made the decision not to pursue or try to pursue with this referendum a LEED certification, which is what you're talking about, I believe, when you're talking green, simply because that costs us a lot of money just to get the certificate on the school. We can design it to those same standards, just don't spend the money to go out and get the certificate. So that's our intention.
I just had a question about the structural issue at Cooper. You have slide with the water. Has mold been an issue addressed? Is there a drinking quality problem at Cooper School?
I can share a little bit, and then as Gary's the one that monitors that. That happened to be the school that I did my student teaching at. So that was back in 1989, 1990. Right after I finished student teaching, they had to take down many of the walls because the mold was completely in the drywall. So all of that had to be redone, and they had to begin monitoring regularly. I do know it's an ongoing issue of concern because it's damp. So there's a lot of things that we do there that Gary can probably explain better than me. But we did have a major issue some time ago. We cleaned that up and we monitor it regularly.
And we do a yearly monitor for those types of things, besides which, if we have any issues, they can either email me or submit a work order for that. log those work orders, even if they just ask me about it, I log the work order as a environmental quality issue and track it down until we find out what the problem is. We have not had any significant problems with mold yet. It's only a matter of time, but we have not, other than the period back when Jenna was talking about. Currently, we haven't had any problems. We do some things differently in maintaining the building now. One of the things with clean carpets, we have purchased a number of large dehumidifiers. So we try to dehumidify the buildings right away in the summertime when we clean carpets, for instance. That's a good source to get mold when you clean a carpet and it's damp for a long period of time. Things like that. We also have some machines, ultraviolet light machines to kill germs and fungi in rooms. So we do that whenever we have a suspicion of any kind of an issue. There are guidelines from the EPA on how to clean mold in schools and stuff, and we follow those if we ever run across it. Lately, that hasn't been an issue. The past couple of years, we've been pretty good on most of those issues. I haven't seen a lot. We haven't found a lot. So we are watching. And we have, and I can guarantee you, we have a lot of staff that are more than willing to tell me if there's an issue. So I hear about them right away.
I worked at Cooper for 20 years teaching, and I've been retired for 5 years now, and I've been a lot healthier. I'm just saying. And I know the mold was an issue, and I was there too, Jana, with, taking down walls and everything, and none of us that had all these issues ever believed you took care of it. No offense to the maintenance people. It's just the way the building was built. It's like, and so I knew many people through the time I was at Cooper, teachers and students and so forth, that left the building because they were sick a lot. And I know we had a high rate of sick children with asthma and bronchitis and so forth. So I truly believe Cooper is it maybe isn't anymore, but it's a big building. And I have my doctors that agree with that too. But I loved it there, but it's just different.
My name is Patrick Gallagher. I work for Carl Sanderson. We've been working with the team here as a part of this team. And I think one of the things that I want to bring out here is this was a long survey that we did over a year of looking at all these facilities. And back to your comment on, when you graduated some kids that have gone on to be good professionals and been successful in life, and why does the facility need to be upgraded? What we're proposing here isn't everything that's wrong in the district's facilities. There's a lot of things that need attention and over the years can be addressed. What we're addressing here in the referendum are the ones that are the worst and that really need to be taken care of now. And what you're saying is a perfect example. It's something the district's been living with. They've been mitigating the risks. They've been dealing with it. It's now at a point where it does need to be replaced. There are other things that they would like to do. The list that we have, I have spreadsheets of things that we recommend need to be addressed. And the school board very responsibly said, well, we can't do all of that. So what do we have to do? And we went back, racked and stacked these in a priority. And then they said, well, we still can't do all of those. So now what can we afford to do? And what you're seeing here is the result of over a year of analysis, going back to the school board, talking to the district and the facilities personnel there, and then making the decisions that these are things that we have to do. If we don't do this now, we're not responsibly addressing the facilities to maintain the education level and the health of the occupants of the building. So I just want to make that clear that there are other things that they'd like to do, and they have not decided to do those at this time because they are concerned about the finances and what the tax burden is on taxpayers like me and Superior School District. So, any questions on that?
What process to get for the last year looking into this?
Not enough. No, honestly, the way Carl Sanderson does this is we don't charge a lot for the survey, with the hope that we will be hired to do the actual project. And we did do an interview process, a competitive process. And we won that through a decision that was done answering an RFP and then doing an interview and then comparing our credentials to other competitors that we had.
But you're going to benefit on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm going to pay too because I live in Superior School District. What's that?
It's a positive push that you towards us. Benefit your corporation.
I'd like to just clarify to you how the process went, and that's what I'm saying, is the assessment that was done was not just to build a new Cooper school. It was an assessment that was done district-wide on all the different priorities.
I think that brings up another good point that has been a misconception in the past, and just to make sure everybody's aware, Krause Anderson will not be doing the physical labor on the project. They will be managing the subcontractors. And so in Wisconsin, the way it's set up, they could have selected to do it design build, where Krause Anderson would have held all of the construction contracts and been able to mark that up and do that type of thing. Instead, they just chose to go with what's called construction manager as the advisor, CMA. What that means is the district has final control over each and every subcontractor that's hired, and they hold the contracts directly with those subcontractors. So it gives the district more control from a cost standpoint, from a quality standpoint. They still have Krause Anderson and LHB as the professionals there to control the process and direct it, but everything will be competitively bid. And in addition to that, the school district will be able to see tax savings because the district doesn't have to pay for product tax or sales tax on product. And so that tax savings is recognized in the BCDG construction project as well through this process and this initiative. So, yeah.
Speaking of the subcontracting process, is there something that is done to try and keep that as local as possible? I understand there's a big process, but to try and keep the money you ask for from us into the Superior community or try and hire.
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. Yes, in fact, we've entered into a project labor agreement with our partners in the union to make sure that we do keep it local. A good example is when we built the Spartan Sports Complex, we worked very hard to have local people bid, in fact, calling companies to say, you didn't put in a bid, please put in a bid. We want to keep everything as humanly possible local. That's the same kind of moving forward with this project. So our goal is that we can put a lot of our men and women in our to work, and our companies hopefully will bid that are here and can drive. So we're hoping we can generate a lot of support with our community.
Have you subcontracted out yet, or is that too soon for that?
No, so the way the process will work is if the referendum passes in the bid, we'll go through a full design process, and then in January of 2017 would be the time when the project will be bid out, and that's when the subcontractors would be selected based on value of the contract and based on performance, experience, and expertise.
Who approves the subcontractor?
The recommendation.
The approval on all the contracts are from the school board. Yeah. But just to talk a little bit about the local piece, I didn't even catch that up. Is one of the things that we do, Krause Anderson is an agent that works for the district. And I'm glad you clarified that, Kevin, because we also do general contracting, where we would, for $40 million, build a building. That's not what we're doing here. We're an agent and a partner with the district. And one of the reasons they involved us up front is what you had talked about on the red plan and in past overrun situations that districts have experienced, is that if you hire somebody who has experience in those costs, that they get more accurate pricing when they put this together. So that the $90 million threshold that is state mandated doesn't get exceeded and your scope doesn't have to be cut back. And that's one of the advantages that we bring to this. We get paid on a percentage fee similar to the architect working as a union, working for you as a district. If the way the contractors work now, we write what's called work scopes, and we try to divvy that up as small as we can to catch specialists. In other words, just drywall, it's drywall, as opposed to bidding to somebody who's going to do concrete, steel, and drywall. Then big companies have an advantage in that, and that would tend to draw bigger contractors into the area from outside the area. When we write these smaller work scopes, an outfit that just does drywall can have a competitive ability to get that job and won't have to know concrete and steel and roofing and everything else underneath their same thing. So that's one of the things that we do. Those work scopes go out, it's competitively bid, then we come back and make sure they have that scope all covered, and once we feel comfortable that they do, then we present it to the board and then they approve it. If they can choose not to approve it, they can choose to reject those bids and go back out to bid again. If they don't like how many bidders bid or for whatever reason they want to use, they have that ability to do that, and we go bid it again and then do it all over again for that work scope.
Are those public meetings then? Do you approve those contracts?
When they actually approve them.
Yeah.
Yeah, all contracts have to be approved in public, so we have 2 board meetings every month. It's typically the first Monday and the second Tuesday. We move the second Tuesday where final action will be taken. But I can give you another example. As we were working on the Spartan Sports Complex, our board president did sit in on all of the meetings. We have those every week, sometimes twice a week, to make sure he understood exactly what was happening so he could fill in other board members if there was questions. And that's what we're looking to do as a model that's been successful the last one as well.
I tried to find the information, and I was not able to find it, but I was told by an acquaintance of mine that this process began. In other words, the school district first came out with the idea of all these construction projects. The amount was significantly less. In fact, it was $54 million. First of all, was that the original estimate for the cost, and why is it $38 million or $36 million more?
No, there was never a $54 million amount. When the board decided on the final scope of this project was actually over the summer, completely finalized it in August because we wanted to have a roll-up as the school year started and get information to all families in the form of that brochure. And that's when the final scope was decided that it would be $92.5 million. So I can't speak to why other numbers were thrown out.
When they went out and sought proposals for the design and the pre-referendum services, the value that they put out there as a baseline so that everybody was kind of going off of the same value was about 65. And at that time, we still weren't sure if they were going to go for a referendum in 2014 or 2016. So that 65 was base value to get apples and apples versus apples and oranges. And then it wouldn't have had any of the inflation factors for the last 2 years and basically a third year into it. So there was a $65 million value number, but that was purely for soliciting equal proposals.
Right, and I would say that we are the ones that, with the school board, Elena and Gary and I said, we need to have apples to apples as best as possible. So when we chose the $65 million, that was saying, if you did this, how much would you charge us? But the actual scope of the project was not defined until we had a chance to really look through this, and it happened in this last August, and it's always been $92.5 million.
So, in other words, the scope of the project grew?
No, we do all just try to make competitive to say, okay, we're telling you this is what the project's going to be. We could have said $100 million, or we could have said $25 million, saying it's this. And if that's the dollar amount that we're saying it's going to be, you tell us all the fees, so we were able to make sure we were getting the best deal that we could possibly get at the best way possible.
From a standpoint of the way the district looks and the projected growth of student population, this building would be sitting in a very good position for the next 20 plus years. From that standpoint, are there going to be pieces that still need to be maintained and updated? Yeah, very security guys are still going to be busy, but it's not to the referendum.
Thank you, and I also like to say we do need to educate our kids in the best type of facility that we can afford.
Two comments. I don't know if it's a question, the second part, but I was coming here tonight and ready to give you a C grade, but I changed it to a B plus, to an A minus. Teamwork, your patience, your knowledge, your answers were great, I thought. My concern if this doesn't pass is we have 2 children in the school district, so I think it's a fairly easy sell for us. I think and I don't know, it could be my misperception, but I think you got to work on selling it to my mom, who doesn't have internet, who doesn't have children. So if it doesn't pass, I don't know what we can do, but I don't think it's students and parents that you need to focus on. I think it's the other 2/3 of the community that maybe didn't get this great information. I don't know how to do it, but if it doesn't pass, that's my suggestion.
I would just say that's a couple of reasons we did the mailings out to everybody's house, so we physically would have it in front of them. We have a lot of people that like the paper to be able to look at that, and that's why I do a column in the paper, because we have many people that prefer to get their information that way. I do know that if this is not successful, we have a lot of hours of work ahead of us to figure out what do we do, because we still have all the problems. None of these problems will go away, from the leaky roofs to my orchestra teacher having to teach orchestra in the middle of a hallway. So the board will have to sit down and think, what do we do? Part of that first step will really be analyzing the voter turnout, what happened with that. Our hope obviously is that it is successful, but if it's not, that's our first step, and we'll have to plot and figure out what do we do, because obviously we still have the same charge. We have to actualize the mission of this district. The school board still has to care about these buildings as the community needs to. These are public buildings, so it'll just be a lot of work ahead of us to try to figure out what we do now. No, that didn't pass this session. The representative that brought it up this session did not get a co-sponsor to have any weight. He did say he's going to bring it up next session, and obviously he's working hard to do that. What she's talking about is our legislators want to have a new law that if a referendum fails, they're not allowed to go to another referendum for 2 years. They've also talked about capping it based on what is your total amount of money that you get from the state, so having a percentage of that. I'm hopeful that that doesn't pass, because this needs to be about local control, not the Madison telling us, here's how you're going to run things in Superior. So I'm hopeful that that won't ever be successful.
I just want to throw in one little thing about we talked about, and since we've talked about the possibility of if something doesn't, we don't get this, we don't know where the referendum people will decide. We do have, as we talked about, we have a limited budget, because we've got a limited operations and maintenance budget. My maintenance budget is, limited. Without expanding that, if we don't do this, what's going to happen is that maintenance budget is going to go more to this high school and Cooper to try to keep them at least, like a D- grade kind of, instead if we want to put a grade on it. And less is going to go to those other schools, and they'll will get worse. So, that's the reality of the whole thing.
The glass wall and security area that you had talked about and showed in the picture, do we have that in any of our schools here in town right now?
No, we don't.
No, we do not.
If we do put that in, are they going to hire more people from those areas, or just the staff that's already in place?
So what that actually does is it reduces that need to add additional staff. There are buildings in district where people actually have to put a greeter right at the front, so that when somebody comes into a building, and so now you're paying a regular cost for that individual to sit there. By setting it up this way, your receptionists or secretaries that are up front have control of the buzzer, and then the people can't walk past without coming in there to sign in. So you're actually limiting the need for additional staffing by controlling the pattern of travel of these individuals that are coming in.
That basically answers my question. I have a kid in Great Lake. He just has a lot of problems with the front office there. It seems like a lot of times they're just overwhelmed with what's already going on in the front office. So to then add another security and make all the parents just go right to that front office that already seems overwhelmed, and my kid's only been there for 2 years. So I guess that's why I came up with that question, just trying to see.
As a former board member and as a former contractor for about 50 years, my basic concern if this referendum passes is the design. I would like the LHB, Carl Anderson, and the board to sit down and give it a long, hard thought on what materials we're going to use the durability and the longevity of that material. Basically, the sound construction, very efficient construction, modern technology, and eliminate some of the frills, which are, to me, are like icing on the cake. The cupolas, the big atrium front entrance, to me, that doesn't make the kids smarter. It's a wasted space a lot of times. I would like to see the money put into something that is going to give us a good return on our investment.
You sound like all 7 of my board members. So I think you should be proud that that's the kind of thinking that goes on around the table, that gets questioned and asked, and they don't rush to judgment on projects, and if they aren't happy with what's happening, believe me, they say we need to go back out and do this again and find better information. And we've got some very knowledgeable board members. Our board president did his work at Lakewood Constructors. He's got some good knowledge on things to do, does his research, as well as our building and grounds. So I believe that we've got a top-notch team that's going to make sure all those things happen. It's not about making it the Taj Mahal. This is about making a great structure to learn in without some frosting as you put on it.
Well, one of the things that you look at as a community, these are really community centers, not just schools. We don't have a deck like we do in Duluth. A lot of the events and things happen at the schools. And I think this community got behind the sports center and give our kids a competitive advantage on the sports fields. And I think it's important, too, to maintain that competitive advantage in the classroom as well. So I hope it passes. I think the economy in our community, we have challenges. My kids have experienced some of the challenges in school, but we need to make these investments so our kids have a brighter future. Get one more question.
Well, kind of like he said, well, we're retired, we grew up here, went to high school, college, we've lived here all our lives, and we have grandkids, and I want to see them have nice, safe schools, and the other kids. We're kind of at a time where we're on posts now. The future's them, and I think they're very important. And for what our taxes are on our house, we're looking at one medium, one crust, and one topping pizza once a month for a raise. I mean, we're looking at about $8 a month. And I think it's well worth it. So I hope it goes through.
I would just like to say that, like the last two said, this is my first meeting. I've never been to one. I'm actually doing it because I go to UWS. I'm a social work major. It's an assignment. And I have learned so much just out of the information that you guys have presented. You know your information, you're giving it to us. I think it's wonderful. I have a son that graduated from here in 2012. My daughter graduated this year. They both have just had excellent experiences. I graduated here. I'm not going to say when. And I mean, for my daughter, she was a cheerleader. And she loved the new sport complex. You know, that's something she will never forget. She got to enjoy cheering there. And we got to enjoy going to the games at the new field instead of going to the prior one. So I think you guys have done an amazing job. And I also would like to see it go through. I think a lot of the community, though, is not as educated or knows as much about the information that you guys gave to us. And if they knew that, then they would probably be more so willing to vote yes. So I really hope that they do vote yes, just because, I mean, the kids are our future, and education is very important, and it's never too late to go back. And, you know, I just want to thank you guys for all your information and everything tonight, because you've done an amazing job. So be proud of yourself and all of the research that you guys have done before throwing it at us.
Thank you very much.
I have a comment, not a question. I'm a strong proponent of this project, and I hope it goes through too, and I hope it passes. I'm concerned, in spite of all of what you said, Jen, about getting the message out. The message is not out. I've been kind of forwarding with people I work with and my neighbors, and they don't seem to know much about it. And I'm really concerned it's not going to pass because they don't understand what it's going to be a surprise to them on the ballot, particularly when I heard tonight that it's on page 2. So I guess I just encourage you to do, I know you only got a week, but whatever you can do to get the message out, to get it to pass, I think is great.
Anybody I know that would like to talk to you about the last 4 months, I would encourage everybody here who took this valuable information and the people that they work with and live by and spread it so that people know the first one to go and vote and have the correct information.
The Superior Young Professionals is doing the same presentation tomorrow at noon at VIP. So get your colleagues and family to come for a free lunch and get as much information as they can.
I see this is being videotaped. Is there an opportunity to take that video and put it on public TV and then also with your columns promote that if there's time between now and Tuesday?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yep, that's why we're doing it. Actually, this is the second time we've done that, so another avenue to try to get the word out. Anybody that has questions, I've had many people stop in to visit, answer all their questions, so just encourage people, if they have questions, they can find out answers on the website, they can call up the board office, and I'm happy to meet with anybody to explain what we're doing. And the fan page, right?
Well, what is passage? Is it just 50.1%?
Yes.
50% plus
0.1.
That 0.1 we're looking.
No. So if somebody leaves it blank, that doesn't count for or against. Anybody that is in the Superior School District can vote. So whether you're outside living in South Superior or out by Passport Corners, wherever you might be living, actually local voting polling agency, that's where you'll go to vote. So the things that will be on there will be on the school district referendum, and it will be, obviously, you might have local government, whether that is councilmen or whatever it might be, school board members, and then obviously everybody's going to be the presidential primary.
Is it 50+% of the people that vote or the people that live in the school district?
50% that vote. 50% plus 1 vote of the people that vote.
The website does have just about everything you can imagine. We try to mold that with all sorts of information. But if you see something and you still have a question, you can email us, you can call us, and stop over, and we'll be happy to try to explain anything. And thanks for coming out and getting informed.